Greetings, friends, and welcome to another live stream here at Kirby Russia. Of course, you're probably watching this as a recording, because only about 30 people watch it live, but that's okay. Our topic for today is, can I thrive in Russia? We're going to talk about a few topics today, but this one I thought was interesting. I got a message from someone. I get a lot of messages regarding moving to Russia from people. Some are more interesting, some are less interesting, and I thought that this one was pretty top tier. And of course, we're not going to mention this person's name. We are not going to mention where they live or any specifics. Thankfully, this nice little chunk of the message that he sent asking about if he can thrive in Russia, I will read to you as he wrote it because it really contains no personal information, so it's amazing. Almost as if he formatted it for this purpose. So anyways, let's read about what this person, what their situation is. So he's interested in moving to Russia. Quote, I don't work in tech. All my education is in religion. I'm Orthodox, but I am not a clergyman. I write and do biblical counseling and mostly work from home. How realistic is it that I could move to and thrive in Russia? If you honestly tell me I'm better off looking at other places, I will. I just need to know if Russia is a realistic, long-term strategy goal. Now, one thing that was end quote, forgot the end quote part. Now, one thing that's also important to note is that this guy is married. So we have sort of a case profile that's sort of interesting. Is we have someone who is Orthodox, but they're not a clergyman, and they kind of have degrees that unfortunately, I don't see a theology degree as being worthless in the grander scheme of the human experience, but in terms of market influences, it's not the most valuable degree. So can this person thrive in Russia? So the first thing I kind of asked him is because this ties into some things I've been seeing a lot lately, because, the more people that contact me about moving, you kind of get into sort of maybe these two sort of positions. There seems to be this one type of person who they're more interested in Russia itself, or they're just Orthodox Christians in Russia, sort of the capital city of Orthodoxy, or for whatever reason they, who knows, like Putin, or something about Russia just suits them and they're really interested in it. And then there's this sort of other type of person that I would call like a min-maxer. If you're not familiar, min-maxing is the process of minimizing all the negatives and maximizing all the positives in something. It usually comes from the world of role-playing games or something like, Dungeons and Dragons. If you're trying to build a particular type of character, you want to maximize these attributes while minimizing these negative effects as you build your character, so on and so forth. So you get into this sort of thing where there's a lot of these min-maxer types, and that's kind of the thing I asked this guy, is before he can even answer if he's going to, kind of thrive in Russia, I think one of the key things is to determine whether someone is trying to min-max their future and get the best possible, like, economic results out of immigrating, or do they actually want to come to Russia? I've been a little bit curious about this guy called the Nomad Capitalist, who was an American guy. He gave away his citizenship, and he bought some kind of weird, like, I think, island citizenships. I think there's multiple. And he has a pretty popular YouTube channel. And it's interesting to kind of hear where he sort of breaks down sort of all the, benefits and negatives of this country's citizenship or that country's citizenship. But there's no, like, cultural factor. And so I usually tell people, if you're actually trying to just min-max, you're just trying to see, like, get the absolute best, like, I don't know, pay the least amount of taxes, but get the most amount of social benefits, and have a passport that allows you to travel the most amount of countries, or whatever these people are concerned with, or they're usually also concerned with divorce laws and all that. Well, even though Russia does okay in those types of questions, don't come to Russia. Because the point of being in Russia is not for you to engage in some sort of weird gamesmanship of citizenship. See, I kind of don't like that. I mean, is someone free to do this? I guess they are. But one of the things that people don't factor in is, okay, say you do have some sort of, you're an American, and you see that there's so many benefits statistically to being like a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, or Tobago, however you want to say it, okay? Well, are you really a local there? Do you have any connection to that island? How much time are you actually going to spend there? What happens if something goes wrong? You know, it's kind of like these people don't understand that if you're going to live in a country, you have to have some like cultural connection to it. And in fact, when I give a lot of interviews, I even say that I'm a bit of an exception because all my ancestors came from Eastern Europe. So for me to go back to Eastern Europe wasn't as much of a stretch. I'm always more sort of mystified by like French people or Brazilians or someone who comes here because they have no connection to it. You see what I mean? It's quite something different. And I think that people really need to, if they're going to choose to leave any country, we're not just talking about the United States, but emigrate to some other country for a better life, they really need to analyze this thing a lot more thoroughly than min-maxing financial benefits, okay? Because you have to like being in that country. You are going to be surrounded by the locals in that country. So, for example, maybe someone finds China to be neat. First off, it's very difficult to immigrate to China, even worse than Russia. But let's just say they're really impressed by the Chinese economy and they believe that China is the future. Okay. Do you think you can master Chinese? Have you ever lived around countless thousands or millions of Chinese people if you lived in a big city? What's that going to be like? Do you even understand what Chinese culture is? You see what I'm getting at? So that's kind of the first layer of this, is if you're just trying to min-max your benefits, don't go to Russia. From my standpoint, I don't want people like that here, so that's the first thing. Don't come here if you have that sort of attitude towards the country. You have to, basically, to really enjoy living in Russia, you have to like it. That's one thing, especially with Western foreigners. Western foreigners who are sort of been in the past forced to come here for work, hate it. If you are forced to go to Russia, you will not like living here. I am sure Edward Snowden hates every day of his life in Russia, but he has no choice. Whereas if you do have a choice, that makes things a lot more different. So that's kind of the first thing. And he also, this guy really asked this interesting question then about, so he said he wasn't interested in min-maxing. He was sort of interested in just, he felt that the United States is in deep doo-doo and he wants to just try something else but doesn't quite know what to do. So he asked if he could thrive in Russia. And that's one of the things where there's no guarantees. You know what I mean? How could anyone guarantee you? Can you thrive in, I don't know, the Philippines? You know, well, the Philippines is actually a very popular destination amongst people who like to play min-maxing passport games. They like the Philippines. But, you know, the Philippines is really cheap and really poor for a reason. So if the Filipinos themselves can't really thrive in the Philippines, why can you? That's another question. So, yeah, this is kind of a brutally complex issue. But for foreign people to become successful in Russia, ironically, the first thing you have to do is be here. You've probably seen, if you guys comment a lot, the people in the chat have mentioned that really, in all honesty, no matter how much you would think that you should be able to look for a job in Russia online, get it all set up with the work visa, it should be easy. People should want to hire you because maybe you have this amazing background, but it doesn't work that way. The only real way that you could sort of find a job in Russia is to already be in Russia, which is paradoxical because how do you really move here if you don't have a job? You see what I mean? It's this kind of catch-22 that makes Russia really difficult to move to. In fact, one person involved in the American Village, as it stands today, actually during the process of doing this, was offered a really good job with a really high-paying salary, doing something, we'll just call it physical, more on the physical side of things. Blue-collar work at a very good salary. So if this person wouldn't have been involved in this, they would have never been offered this job. You see what I mean? And so the one thing is about thriving in Russia is you cannot begin anything in Russia until you're already here. That's number one. Number two, you can't do anything here without learning the language. You have to learn the language, or your life will remain completely and totally in the West. So like this guy, you know, he mentions that he has you know, his degree was in religion and not so much in tech stuff, and then he does some sort of counseling and all that. That could be an advantage because if at least he's in contact with the Orthodox Church, maybe he could work something out with the church to help give him some support or something to do in Russia. But ultimately, you know, again, we're in the 21st century. I don't think degrees really matter that much anymore. Let me put it this way. Hold on. Degrees really don't matter that much. It's whether you can do something or not. So the thing is, you have to think about what you can do. You're transported to a distant land with different norms, different cultural rules, and a completely different language. How are you going to thrive there? That's kind of more what you have to think about. What could you do? What are your options? And to be honest, when I, again, talk to all these people, I hear all these options about, again, going to the Philippines, or wouldn't it be nice to live in Thailand, or wouldn't it be nice to live in Brazil, or wherever the hell. And a lot of these countries, the average person there doesn't really do well. So the question is, why would you as a foreign person in Thailand be able to thrive? When you are not connected to the Thai culture, you're never going to learn the language probably, and you're always going to be, and you're probably never going to get citizenship there, because that is quite the challenge as well. You see what I'm saying, guys? You see what I'm saying? So this question of how can someone thrive in Russia, it ultimately kind of boils down to maybe wanting to be in Russia. You have to want to be here. You can't, again, one thing that was a mistake that I made, and I think everyone makes when they're young, is they think that if they go to a particular college, that college will make them successful. And that's the problem. No one will make you successful but you. You can go to any college you want, or university, or whatever the hell you want to call it, but if you don't take advantage of the education, and you don't find the good jobs, or you don't try to do what you need to be successful in your career, it'll never work out. And that's the same thing. So, you can kind of become successful anywhere. True, I bet in certain parts of Africa, it is way harder than, say, Russia, whose economy is really booming right now. But still, it's on you. So maybe my answer to this, can you thrive in Russia, is, do you want to be here, yes or no? Because if you're just here for min-maxing, you'll never thrive here, okay? You'll never be part of Team Russia. You will never get past the status of being some sort of foreign guy here. And the rest of it is just sort of on the individual person, whether they're willing to go out there and learn the language and fight to get a job and do things and try things and get to know people and try to use the mystique of being a Western foreigner in Russia to their advantage. And trust me, that mystique well is drying up. I think in about 5 or 10 years, Western foreigners might become no longer interesting in Russia whatsoever. So you better burn that oil while it's still there. So anyways, I thought this guy had quite the interesting situation. But if you're considering moving to Russia or leaving, say, the West to go somewhere, again, ask yourself, how exactly are you going to thrive in a country where you're not part of the culture and you're not part of the language group? Like I said, for me, going to Eastern Europe was easier because I'm Eastern European. The food was the same as in like when you're a kid. Everything makes sense. I look like everyone. Was a huge advantage for me. What if you don't look like people in Russia? What if you don't speak the language? What are you going to do? How are you going to thrive? Do you really want to be here? Those are kind of the big questions, okay? So let's see. Are there any comments about this, or is no one commenting because this is a daytime stream? Daytime streams tend to not do very good. Sorry, guys, but let's see. Okay. EJ says, I agree. It's not a rational choice to put in numbers or a tax rate. You need to like the country for better or worse. Getting a passport is like a marriage. Yeah, it kind of is. Because no matter where you go, again, if you're thinking of things only in terms of these very specific, like, metrics of, like, I have these certain business advantages, well, laws change, the times change. So, okay. So say you go to, one program I always tell people, if you can work for yourself and become self-employed in Russia and pay 4% taxes, that is amazing, okay? But what if you came here only for that reason? You were like, 4% taxes, that's it? I'm going to Russia. And well, what if that changes in 20 years? Will you hate Russia? Will you hate your life here? And also, would paying 4% taxes, would that really give you contentment in life? It would certainly make your financial life better. Trust me, I love it. But is it going to make you happy? Is it going to give you long-term contentment? Is it going to help you build a family? Well, in an economic sense, maybe. You see what I mean? So I think that there's very much, like I say, this sort of almost autistic approach to this min-maxing of looking at these countries and this benefit and that benefit. And it's like, okay, so you go through this chart and you're like, oh my gosh, it's let's just pick a weird place. Fiji. Fiji is the place. Okay, do you really want to live in an isolated island in the Pacific? You know, do you? You sure about that? So think about it. Bocani. Hey, Mr. Tim Kirby. I absolutely and positively agree with your statement, man. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Bocani. And thank you for watching the live streams. You're a regular viewer. My question is, are there any Slavic peoples who are moving to Russia like Serbs, Bosniaks, and Belarusians? Well, with Belarus, that's a bit of a... It's not really necessary because Russia and Belarus are in what's called the Union State. So they kind of already are one country, and just like between the EU countries, how there's no border anymore, that is the case between Russia and Belarus. So there's really no necessity for someone from Belarus to gain Russian citizenship, because it's kind of like, a German gets a job in France under the current EU setup. He doesn't need he doesn't need French citizenship. He doesn't need a work visa. He really doesn't need to do anything. So why go through all the hassle of getting French citizenship in that? So it's kind of that way. Serbs, yeah, there are a lot of Serbians have come to Russia because, as you know, the Russian economy is very big and is really breaking away from sort of the globalist yoke. And, well, Serbia is much closer to the heart of the devil, as you might want to put it. And so, yeah, a lot of Serbians do seem interested in, if not moving to Russia, but having contact with Russia. But then again, I think Serbia is a country of like 7 million people, so there's not that many people there. But yeah, there's definitely some interaction. And I see, at least in people's last names, there are a lot of, Balkan last names. You know, like... what was it, like Mila Jovovich, the famous actress, right? That's a good example of a very Balkan last name, especially last names that end in Ovich are usually from the Balkans, and there are plenty of them in Russia. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of sort of interaction. But is there like an entire, like, gigantic Serbian diaspora or diaspora? I always forget how to say that in English. No, not really, or at least not that I've seen. But of course, it also helps that Serbian and Russian are very similar in the way that they behave. So it's very easy, I'll put it this way. People who speak Serbian have much softer foreign accents. They're able to, I think, master Russian much better than people from other language groups. So yeah. Sam, do we still need an apostilled birth certificate to join the American Village? Well, it's not to join the American Village. It is to get temporary residency. And yes, you have to have some kind of birth certificate to immigrate to Russia. That is a demand from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. That is unchanging. So that's going to be the next topic. We'll move on to that soon. Contra Veritatem Mundi. The Chinese model is communist governance combined with unbridled theft-based capitalism, i.e., intellectual property laws practically don't exist in China, and theft, especially from foreign corporations, is encouraged and rewarded by their system as its economic engine. And Russia plans to begin mirroring their economy more closely after China's. This is a major step in the wrong direction, just as much step in the wrong direction in mirroring the economy. Okay, well, the one thing is that in Russia, too late. A lot of these intellectual properties weren't super respected even before the war, and now after the war, everything is up for being stolen. Everything. You're interested, as they say in Russian, it was yours, now it's ours. And that's kind of what's happening with intellectual property here, turning on the lights in Russia. So I don't quite know what to say about that. That's not really connected to our topic today. But so we hear your opinion. Don't copy anyone else's economic models. Think for yourself. Cool. I can feel that. I was just listening to a song called Matushka Zemlya. Probably Matushka Zemli, or there's a hyphen in it. Matushka Zemlya, like one word. But anyways, Do you think the song is better than Yaruski? I don't like music. Music is not important to me. You are asking, I am the worst person to ask any question about poetry or music. But anyways, guys, so that was our first part of our live stream today. I hope this answered the question, can you thrive in Russia? Again, it's kind of all on your shoulders, to be honest. Do you want to be here? Can you participate in society here? Can you fit in? Can you adapt? Do you have the gusto to go out and do it, and especially learn the language? That's kind of on you. And if you can do it, you can probably thrive here. So anyways, let's move on to our next topic.